There is a row of tired plants sitting on the discount rack at almost every garden center in July. A few weeks ago, they were the stars of the nursery. Now they're marked down, drying out in plastic pots, waiting for someone to take them home. Most gardeners look at those plants and see a bad investment. I look at them and see a lesson. Because the biggest mistake in gardening is believing that every spring you need to start over. You don't. The most beautiful gardens in America were not built by constantly replacing plants. They were built by choosing the right plants once. The old gardens people stopped to admire were not created with endless trips to the garden center. They were built with dependable perennials that returned year after year, slowly growing larger, stronger, and more beautiful with age. That's what this video is about. Today, I'm going to show you 11 perennials you can plant in July that will keep showing up long after the annuals are gone. Some bloom for months. Some ignore drought. Some shrug off diseases that destroy older varieties. And one of them has been blooming continuously in the same location for nearly a century. Let's get started. Before we dive into today's video, I have a major announcement. The gardening guide you've been writing to me about for months is finally here. The Plant Once Garden is officially out. You have been incredibly patient with me while I took the time to get this right. It is approximately 150 pages of everything this channel teaches, gathered into one complete reference, designed with a hand-drawn heritage cover and warm cream pages that feel like a guide your grandmother would have owned. Inside, you'll find the 90 perennial plants that come back every year with almost no labor, 6 complete garden plans, the no-labor planting calendar, and the hydrogen peroxide method explained completely. I've also included the specific perennials that bring hummingbirds singing and dancing right outside your window, the chapter on what your garden becomes over 20 years, and the mistakes that kill perennials. This is a reference you can lean on for the rest of your gardening life. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now, or click the link in the pinned comment or description below to get your copy. Thank you again for your patience. Now, back to the garden. Number 11. Daylily Happy Returns. Let's begin with a plant almost everyone recognizes. The daylily. But not the one you're probably thinking about. For decades, garden centers have pushed Stella d'Oro as the default yellow daylily. It's everywhere. Commercial buildings, parking lot islands, front foundation beds. And while there's nothing wrong with Stella d'Oro, there is a better choice. It's called Happy Returns. Happy Returns reaches roughly the same height, produces the same cheerful yellow flowers, and blooms for an incredibly long period of time. The difference is that the flowers have a softer, more natural appearance, and the plant creates a much gentler look in the landscape. For gardeners who want color without work, that's exactly what you want. The lazy benefit is simple. You don't have to stand outside deadheading every few days. You don't have to divide it every few years to keep it alive. And once established, it simply keeps flowering. June, July, August, September, often right into October. Plant it in full sun and give it a good first year of watering while the roots establish. After that, the plant becomes remarkably independent. In colder zones, particularly zones 3 through 6, this is one of the easiest perennials you can grow. Winter freezes don't bother it. Snow doesn't bother it. The plant disappears completely and returns every spring as if nothing happened. In warmer climates, particularly zones 8 and 9, there is one adjustment worth making. Give the plant morning sun and a little protection from intense afternoon heat. That small change helps preserve the buttery yellow flower color and prevents scorching during heat waves. Most gardeners never think about what their flower bed will look like 10 years from now. Happy Returns rewards the people who do. A small planting today becomes a continuous ribbon of yellow flowers stretching across the front of the border, year after year, without asking for much in return. And that's exactly the kind of perennial that belongs on this list. Number 10. Salvia Karadonna. Some flowers look beautiful. Some flowers create structure. Karadonna does both. At first glance, it looks like a simple purple salvia. Then you notice the stems. Instead of ordinary green stems, Karadonna produces deep purple-black stems that make the entire plant stand out. The effect is dramatic, especially when sunlight hits the flowers. The contrast between the dark stems and violet blooms makes the plant look almost architectural. The lazy gardener's advantage comes from its strength. Older salvias often flop over after summer storms. Heavy rain arrives. The flowers collapse. The gardener ends up staking plants that were supposed to be easy. Karadonna solves that problem. The stems remain upright. The flowers stay standing, and the plant continues looking tidy throughout the season. Give it full sun. Give it reasonably well-drained soil. That's about it. Once established, Karadonna tolerates drought extremely well. It attracts bees. It attracts pollinators. And it asks for very little attention. If you garden in zones 4 and 5, plant it in as much sun as possible. The more sunlight it receives, the stronger the flowering display becomes. If you're gardening in hotter regions, especially zones 8 and 9, there is one trick that makes a huge difference. When the first flowering cycle finishes, cut the plant back by roughly half. That simple haircut often produces a second flush of flowers later in the season. Many gardeners miss that opportunity. The plant looks finished. They leave it alone, then wonder why it doesn't rebloom. A quick trim changes everything. What I appreciate most about Karadonna is consistency. It shows up, performs, and repeats the process every year. No drama, no constant maintenance. Just reliable color. Number 9. Catmint Walker's Low. If somebody told me I could only plant one perennial to suppress weeds, attract pollinators, survive drought, ignore deer, and bloom for months, Catmint Walker's Low would be one of the first plants I'd consider. This plant is a machine. By late spring, it begins producing waves of lavender blue flowers. Then it keeps going, and going, and going. Many perennials bloom for a few weeks. Walker's Low blooms for months. That's a major difference. The lazy benefit is not just the flowers. It's what happens underneath them. As the plant matures, it expands outward into a broad mound. By the third year, many plants reach 4 feet across. That dense growth shades the soil and crowds out weeds before they can establish themselves. Less weeding, less maintenance, more flowers. That's a trade almost every gardener will gladly accept. The second benefit is resistance. Deer generally leave it alone. Rabbits usually ignore it. Summer heat barely slows it down. And once established, drought becomes a minor inconvenience rather than a serious threat. For gardeners in hot, dry regions, particularly zones 7 through 9, Walker's Low is one of the easiest recommendations on this list. The hotter and drier the summer becomes, the more comfortable it seems. In wetter regions, drainage matters. This is not a plant that wants wet feet during winter. If your soil stays saturated for long periods, consider planting it in a raised bed or slightly elevated location. The goal is simple. Keep water moving through the soil rather than sitting around the roots. One thing I appreciate about Walker's Low is that it spreads politely. It fills available space. But it doesn't behave like mint. It doesn't suddenly take over the neighborhood. It grows where you planted it and gradually creates the cloud-like appearance that made it famous. Plant it. Water it the first season. Then spend your time enjoying it instead of working on it. That's the entire point. Quick question. Let me know in the comments. Which of these first 3 plants is already growing in your garden? And what state, province, or country are you gardening in? I always enjoy seeing how different plants perform across different regions. Now let's keep going. Number 8. Sedum Matrona. There are certain plants gardeners recommend because they've always recommended them. And then there are plants that are actually better. Matrona is one of those plants. For years, Autumn Joy was the standard upright sedum. Millions were planted. Millions are still growing today. The problem is what happens later. As Autumn Joy ages, many plants develop a hollow center. The neat mound gradually opens up. The shape deteriorates. And eventually the gardener has to intervene. Matrona largely avoids that problem. The structure stays tighter. The stems stay stronger. And the plant maintains its appearance for much longer. Visually, it offers everything people love about upright sedums. Purple-tinged stems, dusty foliage, large clusters of pink flowers that appear late in the season when many other perennials are slowing down. By autumn, it becomes one of the stars of the garden. The lazy benefit is that neglect actually improves performance. Most perennials appreciate rich soil. Matrona does not. Most perennials appreciate extra fertilizer. Matrona does not. Most perennials appreciate regular watering. Matrona definitely does not. In fact, overcaring for this plant is usually the fastest way to ruin it. Rich soil causes floppy growth. Too much water weakens stems. Excess fertilizer creates problems. Lean soil produces stronger plants. Dry conditions produce sturdier growth. This is one of those rare situations where doing less produces better results. For gardeners in rainy climates, this lesson becomes especially important. Allow the soil to drain. Avoid constantly watering. And resist the temptation to pamper it. The plant already knows exactly how to survive. Your job is simply not to interfere. By the time autumn arrives and those dusty pink flower heads begin glowing in the afternoon sun, you'll understand why so many experienced gardeners refuse to garden without a good sedum. Number 7. Black-Eyed Susan, American Gold Rush. Every gardener knows Black-Eyed Susans. Few know which one to buy. That's where American Gold Rush changes everything. The traditional problem with older Black-Eyed Susan varieties appears around August. The flowers still look good, but the foliage begins falling apart. Brown spots spread across the leaves. The lower stems become ugly, and the plant slowly loses its appeal. American Gold Rush was specifically selected to solve that problem. The disease resistance is remarkable. While older varieties struggle, this one continues looking clean and healthy. That may not sound exciting, until you've spent an entire season looking at diseased foliage. Then it becomes very exciting. The flowers themselves are slightly smaller than older types, but there are more of them. The result is a fuller display that lasts from summer well into autumn. Pollinators love it. Goldfinches love the seed heads. And gardeners love the fact that it keeps performing without constant intervention. Plant it in full sun. Give it well-drained soil. And let it do its thing. One of the reasons this plant works so well in low-maintenance gardens is its toughness. Heat doesn't bother it. Humidity doesn't bother it. Drought rarely slows it down. In humid regions where leaf diseases usually become a major issue, American Gold Rush continues performing long after other varieties begin declining. That's exactly why it has become one of the most recommended newer cultivars in recent years. If you want a simple design trick, pair it with an ornamental grass. The combination of bright gold flowers and fine textured grass creates the appearance of a professionally designed planting. And it requires very little effort to maintain, which is exactly what we're after. Number 6. Hosta Sum and Substance. Most hostas are dependable. Sum and Substance is something else entirely. It doesn't simply fill a shady corner. It dominates it. By maturity, this hosta can reach roughly 3 feet tall and 4 feet wide. One plant becomes an entire landscape feature. The leaves emerge bright chartreuse and create a dramatic contrast against darker backgrounds. The effect is impossible to miss. Visitors notice it immediately. The lazy benefit comes from the foliage itself. Many hostas spend the summer fighting slugs. By August, the leaves resemble Swiss cheese. Sum and Substance has unusually thick leaves. That extra thickness makes slug damage far less severe than what gardeners experience with many traditional varieties. The plant stays attractive much longer. Give it morning shade. Give it room to grow. And be patient. The first few years are impressive. The later years are spectacular. In colder zones, particularly zones 3 through 5, this hosta can tolerate considerably more morning sun than most gardeners expect. The thick foliage provides additional protection against burning. In warmer regions, especially zones 7 and 8, shade becomes increasingly important. Protect those beautiful chartreuse leaves from intense afternoon heat. Otherwise, the foliage can bleach and lose the color that makes the plant special. Hostas also depend on winter dormancy. That's one reason they struggle in the hottest parts of the country. They need that seasonal rest. Without it, performance gradually declines over time. What makes Sum and Substance unique is scale. Most hostas are supporting players. This one becomes the star. Plant it once. Give it space. And allow it to become the plant everyone asks about when they visit your garden. Number 5. Hardy Geranium Rozanne. Before we move on to the top 4 plants, let me show you one perennial that quietly solves one of the biggest problems in gardening. Empty space. Every gardener has it. The gap at the front of the border. The awkward bare patch between larger plants. The spot that weeds seem to discover before flowers do. That's where Rozanne shines. This is not the bright red annual geranium people put in containers every summer. This is a hardy perennial geranium that returns year after year and asks for almost nothing. What makes Rozanne special is the bloom season. Most perennials have a moment. Rozanne has a season. In many gardens, it begins flowering in late spring and continues all the way into autumn, month after month, without deadheading, without constant trimming, without endless maintenance. The flowers are a beautiful periwinkle blue that stand out against the greens, yellows, and purples commonly found in perennial borders. The plant gently spreads through neighboring perennials without becoming invasive. It doesn't bully. It doesn't take over. It simply fills the space. That makes it one of the easiest front-of-border plants you can grow. In cooler climates, particularly zones 5 and 6, full sun produces the heaviest flowering. The plant responds by covering itself in blooms. In warmer regions, especially zones 7 and 8, afternoon shade becomes valuable. When temperatures climb above 90 degrees, partial shade helps keep the flowers coming. Without that protection, the plant can look tired during extended heat waves. The biggest mistake gardeners make with Rozanne is ignoring it at the garden center, because it doesn't always look spectacular in a nursery pot. Many people walk right past it, then spend the next decade wishing they hadn't. A mature Rozanne is one of those plants that quietly holds an entire border together. While other perennials bloom and fade, Rozanne keeps going. While other plants take breaks, Rozanne keeps blooming. And that's exactly why it has become one of the most recommended low-maintenance perennials in the world. By the way, if you're looking to completely transform your yard into a low-maintenance paradise, don't forget that my full reference guide, The Plant Once Garden, is now officially available. It's 150 pages covering all the perennial foundations and permanent setups we talk about on this channel. You can scan the QR code right here on the screen, or find the link in the pinned comment below to grab your copy. Now, let's get right back into today's topic. Number 4. Amsonia hubrichti, Arkansas Blue Star. Some plants have one great season. Amsonia has 3. That's why gardeners who discover it rarely stop at 1. In spring, the plant covers itself with soft blue star-shaped flowers. Not bright blue, not electric blue. A softer shade that looks elegant instead of flashy. Then summer arrives. Most spring bloomers fade into the background. Amsonia doesn't. The foliage remains fresh, bright green, and beautifully textured for months. The leaves almost resemble soft threads. From a distance, the plant looks light and airy. Then autumn arrives. And that's when the real show begins. The entire plant transforms into glowing gold. Not yellow. Gold. The kind of color that catches your attention from across the yard. It's one of the most dramatic fall transformations any perennial can offer. The lazy benefit is equally impressive. Deer ignore it. Pests rarely bother it. Disease is almost non-existent. And once established, additional watering becomes largely unnecessary. Plant it. Water it during establishment. Then let nature handle the rest. In colder zones, especially zones 4 and 5, full sun produces the strongest autumn color. Those cooler temperatures help trigger the brilliant gold display. In hotter regions, particularly zones 8 and 9, afternoon shade helps preserve the attractive summer foliage. Too much intense southern sun can wash out the color and reduce the plant's overall appearance. What makes Amsonia remarkable is its consistency. It doesn't demand attention. It simply delivers. Year after year, season after season, without asking much from the gardener. That's a rare combination, and one of the reasons it belongs near the top of this list. If you're enjoying the video and want more practical gardening advice designed for real homeowners and real gardens, make sure you subscribe. New videos are released regularly, and everything here is focused on plants that work in the real world, not just in magazine photographs. Now let's get to the top 3. Number 3. Garden Phlox Gina. For years, I avoided garden phlox. Not because I disliked the flowers, because I disliked what happened afterward. The flowers were beautiful. The foliage wasn't. By midsummer, powdery mildew would arrive. The leaves would turn ugly, the stems would thin out, and the plants would look exhausted long before autumn arrived. A lot of gardeners have experienced the same disappointment. Then came Gina, and everything changed. Gina isn't famous because of flower size. It isn't famous because of color. It's famous because it solved the problem. The mildew resistance is extraordinary. While traditional phlox varieties often collapse under humid summer conditions, Gina continues looking clean and healthy. That's a major advantage, especially for gardeners living in humid regions where mildew is almost guaranteed every year. The flowers appear in large lavender-pink clusters that seem to attract butterflies from every direction. Pollinators love it. Butterflies love it. And gardeners love the fact that the foliage remains attractive long after other phlox varieties have deteriorated. The lazy benefit is simple. You get all the beauty of traditional garden phlox without most of the headaches. Plant it in full sun. Give it average soil. Water it during establishment. Then enjoy it. In humid climates, airflow matters. Even though Gina is highly resistant, avoid crowding it between larger plants. Good air circulation keeps the foliage looking its best. In drier regions, mulch becomes important. Garden phlox appreciates consistent moisture. A layer of mulch helps preserve that moisture and prevents the foliage from becoming stressed during long dry periods. As the years pass, Gina becomes wider, fuller, and more impressive. And unlike many traditional phlox varieties, it doesn't require constant intervention to stay attractive. For gardeners who love butterflies and hate mildew, that's a winning combination. Number 2. Baptisia, blue false indigo. Some plants are tough. Baptisia is nearly indestructible. This native prairie perennial develops one of the deepest root systems found in ornamental gardening. Over time, the taproot can extend 8 to 10 feet into the ground. That's not a typo. 8 to 10 feet. Once that root system develops, drought becomes almost irrelevant. Heat becomes almost irrelevant. Most common gardening problems become almost irrelevant. The plant simply keeps growing. In late spring, Baptisia produces beautiful blue flower spikes that resemble lupines. Many people mistake them for lupines at first glance. The difference comes later. Lupines often struggle. Baptisia keeps going. When the flowers finish, decorative seed pods remain behind and add interest well into autumn. The blue-green foliage stays attractive throughout the growing season. The lazy benefit is obvious. Very few plants can survive decades while demanding so little attention. No regular fertilizing. No constant watering. No dividing. No spraying. No drama. The biggest challenge actually comes before planting, because once Baptisia chooses a location, it intends to stay there. Forever. That massive taproot makes transplanting nearly impossible after a few years. So choose carefully. Think long-term. Because the plant certainly will. In colder zones, maximum sun produces the strongest growth and flowering. In warmer regions, especially zones 8 and 9, a little afternoon shade helps preserve the foliage during periods of extreme heat. One thing every gardener should know is that Baptisia tests your patience. The first year is modest. The second year is better. The third year feels like a completely different plant. Then suddenly you understand why experienced gardeners recommend it so often. It becomes the permanent anchor of the border, the plant that quietly holds everything together. And it may continue doing that for 25 years or more. Number 1. Peony. If there is a plant that represents the entire philosophy behind this video, it's the peony. Plant it once. Enjoy it for the rest of your life. And possibly somebody else's life too. Peonies are different from most garden plants. They operate on a completely different timeline. While many flowers come and go over a few years, peonies measure their lives in decades. Sometimes many decades. There are peonies growing today that were planted before the Second World War. There are peonies blooming today that have outlived multiple homeowners. That's the kind of longevity we're talking about. The flowers are legendary. Large, fragrant, elegant, the kind of blooms people stop and admire. But the flowers are only part of the story. The real attraction is permanence. After the first few years, peonies require remarkably little attention. No regular fertilizing. No constant dividing. No endless maintenance. Just dependable spring flowers year after year. The most important detail is planting depth. Nothing else comes close. Plant the eyes too deeply and flowering can disappear entirely. In colder regions, plant the eyes approximately 2 inches below the soil surface. In Zone 7, even shallower is often better. Barely covered. Just enough soil to protect them. This single detail determines success more than anything else. Peonies also need winter. They need cold. They need dormancy. That's why they thrive in Zones 3 through 7 and struggle in the hottest regions of the country. Without sufficient winter chilling, flowering gradually declines. The plant simply cannot perform the way it was designed to. But where conditions are right, few perennials can compete. A properly planted peony may still be blooming long after you're finished gardening, long after ownership of the property changes, long after trends come and go. It simply keeps returning every spring, which makes it the perfect plant to finish today's list. Because the goal was never to find flowers that last a season. The goal was to find flowers that build a garden. And nothing does that better than a peony. If you're ready to stop wasting time on plants that die every winter and finally build a garden that takes care of itself, don't forget to grab your copy of The Plant Once Garden. It's 150 pages of everything this channel teaches, completely mapped out for you. Just scan the QR code on your screen right now, or click the link in the description below to get started. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Those are 11 perennials you can plant in July that come back year after year with very little effort. Some bloom for months. Some ignore drought. Some resist diseases that ruin older varieties. And some may still be growing long after we're gone. If one of these plants is already growing in your garden, let us know in the comments. And if you're adding one this year, tell us which one made your list. Thank you for spending a little time in the garden with me today. Until next time, happy gardening.